Steve, you I noticed you have a what appears to be like a thermal on underneath. You cold?
It's winter.
Okay. I mean, I have we kind of matched. I didn't wear my stuff one, but kind of matched today. I didn't
There we
wasn't
go. There we go.
wasn't intentional. Um, how are you?
Wonderful. It's a podcast.
Good. Great. We have a delayed episode for you this week, but that was because of us.
And it was worth the wait.
It was
You'll
worth
see.
the wait. Because we were joined by uh we get into it. The sporting news, Big Ten networks, a little bit everywhere. Mr. Mike DeCourcy joined us for a great conversation about just being a columnist, doing bracketology, all of the things that Mike is has all the feathers in his cap, if you will, and how he handles all of that. I think it's a really good conversation about just kind of his process because it was neat to hear more um, from him there. And then I gave you some homework. I did my homework. Did you do your homework?
I did. We'll see if I did it correctly.
Okay, I think I did my homework correctly too, even
Well,
though
since
I'm
you assigned
I'm
it, I
the
hope
one.
so.
Yeah. Um. So we'll get into that. Related to this is I'm considering this just in case we don't do an episode next week. Our last episode of the year potentially. So I want to do some type of recap. But we'll explain that after our interview with Mike. Listen to that, and we'll be back after this. Steve, we have another one of those weird moments where somebody that I'm used to seeing all the time on my television screen is now sitting in my computer screen here with us. Our guest today from Sporting News, the Big Ten Network, a whole bunch of other places, Mr. Mike DeCourcy. Mike, how are you?
I'm very well, Darren. How are you?
Good, good.
Good to see you.
Yes, I think it's funny because that's actually what I think of you first and foremost as the guy talking to me about basketball on the Big Ten Network. But I'm curious, what do you consider yourself to be?
Wow, that's a great question because there are a few balls in the air, especially at this time of year when I'm doing not only my sporting news, which is my full-time job, and I think if you drill down, I mean, I've been there 30 years, so that has to be the core of it. But then I'm also at the Big Ten Network most Saturdays. Basically, there's a few between now and the end of the season when I won't be there because Hoop won't be there for the most part. The ones I'm not in for is because there's not either there are no games or not a lot of games on BTN on those weekends. So I'll be absent, but for the most part, between now and the end of the season, I'll be there. And then you'll see me pop up a bunch of times on FS1's college basketball coverage talking about brackets. And also every Tuesday and Friday starting after Christmas, we'll be doing a bracket for the Fox Sports social sites where we project the NCAA tournament bracket. And so uh, I consider myself a sports journalist, and I think that covers a lot of ground. I hear all the time now, and see they even in my college changed some of the writing classes to this title, storytelling. Like I don't consider myself a storyteller. I consider Nick Hornby a storyteller, or Stephen King, uh, or Colson Whitehead. Those guys are storytellers. I'm a journalist. And so my job is to find out what the reality is, what the truth is behind what we all follow in sports and try to reflect that either through the spoken or the written word.
I like that. That's a good way of putting it. One of the other things I think about you, and you mentioned it there, is a columnist. When did you realize that you wanted to hone in on that particular part of sports journalism?
Yeah, when I was young, I mean, there was like to be ahead, I guess, the goal or whatever. When I was in my 20s at the Pittsburgh Press. Okay, so you could maybe get to be a feature writer at Sports Illustrated, like that would be getting ahead. And I didn't really. I had a window of opportunity at one point where they basically, when I was out of work a year after college, I wrote a story for them, and they read it and they liked it, and then they came back to me and they said, "Would you write another?" And at that point, I just started the Pittsburgh Press, and I was like, no, I'm good. This is where I'd wanted to be. I want to work in my hometown, et cetera. And then, like, over the years, I'm like, is that because they didn't think I was good enough to write that story that they wanted me to write another? I've always wondered about that. But so there was that, and then there was a column. Like that was the goal, to be the daily sports columnist. You could get to be that person. In my time, my early days, it was Bob Smizek and Gene Collier. And I didn't necessarily see that I would be supplanting them anytime soon. They both still had many years to do it. So I thought I might have to leave town to do that, but ended up having to leave town anyway. And so there's another little story about I tried to get to be the sports columnist at the paper in Memphis where I was hired after the Pittsburgh Press went down. And I was pretty sure I was going to get it. And that the day I was told that it wasn't mine was probably the most devastating day of my career. I thought, I'm 15, 16 years in. This is where I was told that I had a great chance at this, and then it didn't happen. And literally, I think it was a week later, maybe 10 days, got a call from the Sporting News asking me to be their college basketball columnist. And like that changed my whole life. From that point on, I haven't had a bad day in the business.
Darian started heavy with the what do you consider yourself? I'm going to stay heavy a little bit. Why are you good at this? Why are you a good sports journalist? And you've been doing this for 30 years where you're at the Sporting News, certainly good before that to get that gig. What makes you good at what you do?
Wow. I mean, I think part of it is just being willing to listen and preferring logic over feelings. I think that looking at things logically helps me because not everybody does. I look at use as an example, Mike Tomlin's experience in the last 8 to 10 years as the head coach of the Steelers, and my position on that is that people want him removed from the job, and my position is, look what he's doing. Look how hard it is to do this or that, and how if it were easy, wouldn't everybody else not have a losing season ever? And all those sorts of things. And look how the players consistently perform for him and how they tend to aggregate here. They either get drafted and want to stay, or some of the others that want to come in. Guys like Aaron Rodgers, for instance, or Jalen Ramsey or DK Metcalf. Those guys wanted to be part of this organization. And so I look at it like logically, there aren't a lot of Mike Tomlins out there, and your odds of getting another one, aren't that great. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible. I was asked if the Steelers had gone after Mike Vrabel when he was available after the Titans foolishly fired him, would I have been bothered by that? Well, no, because I knew that Mike was really good, but there aren't a lot of Mike Vrabels out there either. And so I think that you're clinging to that logic over being emotional. I think that has helped me be successful. Not embracing what everybody else does, and trying to see the truth for yourself, either through conversation, through research, reporting, etc. Trying to find out what the real stories are and why things really work. And I think the other reason that I've been successful is because I stick to what I think I'm good at. And when I started the Sporting News, very early in my time there, we had this slogan called "See a Different Game," and the what was sort of behind that was, we're going to tell you things about the games that you don't know. And that was how we operated in our last, well, I guess I was there for the last 15 or 17 years or so of the magazine before it went out of business. And there were times when other magazines would tell you about, what their favorite meal was, and I didn't care. I don't care what you eat for dinner. It doesn't matter to me. I want to know what goes on in between the lines and what goes on just outside the lines that makes what goes on in between the lines happen.
How much better are you at pulling that information out of people? Because it's sometimes hard to share. It's whether that maybe early in your career, oh, that's the sports writer. They're not. I'm going to talk sports. Give them generalities. You don't want generalities. So how do you get that information to be able to tell that difference, to see?
I think it started by understanding the sport. And when I was younger, it was not super common that you would get really into that, that the beat writers would really study the sport as much. I'm not saying it didn't, I'm not saying it was the only one. Please don't misunderstand that. But it wasn't the most common thing. Now I see a lot of it. And I'm happy to see it. Nick Farabaugh, who covers the Steelers, Chris Carter, who covers the Steelers. A lot of young beat writers really understand their sport at a high level. We see that in college basketball as well, where more and more of the young college basketball journalists really get what they get the sport, and I'm excited by that because I don't want to take credit for that, but it feels like I was sort of among the pioneers. I mean, Dick Hoops Weiss was many years before me, so I'm not sitting here saying I was the only one that was out there doing it. Hoops was there before I was and much better at it than I was. So don't think I'm the only one. I'm saying I'm the only one that was doing that. I'm just saying that it was fairly uncommon and that I endeavored to do that, and that it's really cool to see more and more young journalists going in that direction and that becoming a priority and part of how you get ahead in covering colleges now. It may be the single biggest thing is to have an understanding of the sport. And when you express that, I won't say who, but I covered one coach one time, and the beat writer that was my opposition would go around basically acknowledging that he didn't know anything about that particular sport. And I always thought that was really not a great approach. If you don't know it, learn it, and certainly don't let anybody else in on the idea that you don't know it. And the coaches trusted me with information, and the people around the program trusted me with information because they knew I understood the sport well enough to report it more cleanly, more thoroughly, more accurately. And so I think that really helped. And I'm really excited that, I know it's tough for young journalists now, most of them, because they have to, whereas I'm juggling these several jobs as a luxury, so to speak, because I enjoy it, because it does, because I love working with the people that I'm working with at Fox and at Big Ten. I mean, they're phenomenal people. For a lot of young journalists, they have to stitch together a lot of different gigs to have a workable income, and I don't envy that part of it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You mentioned gathering information, but a columnist's core task is also to take a position at times on things. How do you marry the balance of gathering information with taking an opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people understand that, especially from what I write, that I'm not out there to hatchet anybody. I mean, that's not what I do. And I know that the era that I was talking about earlier, when I was a young sports writer, there were some people out there that would take some whacks, and there still are. There still are a few, but I look at when Adrian Wojnarowski was writing before he went into more information gathering and processing and presenting it on television. He was phenomenal, excuse me, at getting information and understanding it and processing and delivering it in a way that was really entertaining and interesting, compelling. Mike Vaccaro at the New York Post is another example of that. Every now and then, your column is going to be tough on somebody because it's warranted. But usually, when I get to being hard on somebody, it's because it's really warranted. I mean, it's something that happened that was untoward, and obviously way outside the lines or that sort of thing. Most of what I write, I think. Now, I I was hard on I was hard on the person Cody Campbell, who did all these PSA type ads for how he was going to save college sports. And like I didn't say anything about him personally. I don't know him, but I did and I didn't. There were some people who said, "Well, why don't you talk to him?" Well, because I've seen him and I've seen his case, and I have seen him write the case in USA Today and present it in those snippet ads. And I don't need to platform him. I know he's wrong. I know his idea to replace the NCAA is ridiculous. The NCAA, if you, as I said in my column, if you in order to replace the NCAA and make it better, you'd have to replace the colleges, because they are the ones that passed all the rules that you don't like, that went to bat for all the rules that you don't like, and or said, okay, here are the rules, NCAA. Now you people in Indy, you enforce them. And if we tell you to go to Congress to lobby for them, you got to do that. And so it's the colleges. So I said, like, okay, so if you're going to take the colleges out of it, then you don't have the Texas Tech Raiders. You just have the Red Raiders of Lubbock, Texas. I mean, that's how ridiculous his position is. And so I'm happy to say that that's wrong, because I know it's wrong, because I've been covering college sports for 40 years, 41 now, and I know that he's totally off base. So but I didn't say anything about him other than he was really rich and really wrong. I didn't say anything about him personally, and I won't. That's not what I'm there for. I've said and I've written that I will never call for a coach to be fired. So I'm not avoiding calling for Mike Tomlin's firing because I won't ever do that. I'll say, look, this person is not good at this job. I'll say that based on what I've observed or what the records are or whatever. But it's not my position to tell you to fire your coach unless that person does something horrific. Yeah. If it's just wins and losses and that sort of thing, or talent recruitment, then I'm not going to say fire your coach. That's up to you. If you think when I say that this person's really bad at their job, gosh, we probably ought to fire him, that's up to you. But it's not, you're the AD, you're the president of the team, whatever it might be, then you fire him if that's what you want to do. But I don't believe in this coach hasn't won enough games, so I say fire him. Who am I? I'm just a writer. I'm a reporter, an analyst, a writer. And I'm not in the position of authority to say whether somebody should be hired or fired.
That makes sense. You mentioned logic earlier, and there may be no greater logic puzzle than bracketology. When did you first take a liking to that? And then from there, what logic goes into your bracketology?
Well, I think that the initial seed of it was when the RPI was first replicated. More than anybody to make on the internet, Jerry Palm. There was a guy before him, Jim Sukup from Indiana, who at least was able to produce it, but accessing it wasn't easy. But Jerry, when he started producing the RPI on the web, then you started to sort of understand, okay, this team, what does past history say gets in? What does past history say the seed will be? From the time I started covering Memphis, I think, from the time until my last year covering the Cincinnati Bearcats, I got the seed right of the team I covered almost every year. I was able to figure out, but I didn't do the rest of the bracket. I just said, okay, I know what usually goes into this seed or what this team fits into the circumstance, and I've gotten it right even when others were surprised by that team's eventual selection. And so that was the beginning. And then in 2006 or 7, maybe somewhere around there, Dave Warlock at the NCAA, great guy, wonderful person, and others at the NCAA started this mock selection exercise. They're going to do another one this year, reviving it. It had been dormant for a while, but they had this mock selection exercise. And so I think Joe Lenardi was there the first time, and I know Jerry was, and some other writers got invited to the NCAA headquarters and got put in the room with all the devices and information that they used to select and see the field, and how you voted on who gets in and all this sort of stuff. I mean, it was like, as I wrote at the time, it was like being handed the Dead Sea Scrolls. Like finding out how the process actually worked was just this revelation. And so I was fascinated by it ever since. But it was really time consuming to do it and to do it right. So when Fox came to me in 2019 and asked if I would be willing to become their new bracket analyst, I was excited by it because it was a chance to expand a little bit, to be featured on their telecasts and to really dig into whether I could be good at it. And I've done pretty well. I'm not the very best, but of the broadcast analysts, I have scored highest most of the years I've been doing it. And 2 of the last 4 years, I think it is, I finished in the top 12 out of 200 brackets on the bracket matrix. That's no guarantee I won't be 198th this time around, but when I get it right or get close, I'm going to brag about it a little bit.
It's fair.
The brackets are a cultural phenomenon. I mean, maybe of things that changed during your career. I mean, the tournament expands, but everything has a bracket now. There's no playoffs; it's the tournament in every league, and even in the NFL, there's brackets. Does that? You talked about platforming yourself a little more with Fox. Do the brackets and bracket-related things get disproportional attention among things you do, or what kind of things draw the most attention of what you do?
Oh, I think it. Well, like the night of the selections. Once the selection board goes up, I've been then doing some analysis for BTN, usually on site at the Big Ten tournament, and then I go and I bar myself in my room, and I do a breakdown of each of the 4 regions for the sporting news, different categories that we do, best matchup, the 5 best players, et cetera, et cetera. And that usually draws a huge audience. That's among the most read things I do every year. The most read thing generally is my bracket itself. My bracket. And that's a tough one because I have to get it done. I have to go through the whole thing and try to make the right selections within half hour, 45 minutes after I get off BTN. But people want to read it. So getting it out there quickly is really important. And so from that standpoint, that's probably the most consumed thing I do all year. But every now and then I'll do a piece, a column, an article that really hits the audience that the audience finds particularly fascinating. I'm trying to remember what it was just within the last couple of weeks that I had one that was really a big success. It was it was the Lane Kiffin column that I did about Kiffin walking away from a championship tournament because he could have a slightly easier job. I found that to be that was one where I wasn't easy on him because what this is all about is competition and trying to pursue a championship. And I particularly was offended by the fact that this is someone who, without a doubt, has at various times either overtly or otherwise demanded that his players make personal sacrifices. Their time, their energy, their position of choice, maybe their personal glory for the betterment of the team. And then when he was asked, okay, this is tough timing, but you either can go for a championship with the guys you've been coaching for multiple years, or you can go for the slightly easier job at LSU. And there he was. He was gone. That column was read very widely.
And I don't think it was unfair either. I heard the passion in your voice about what you do and the excitement about what you're doing. This is my last one for me, but it's going to change gears a little bit. Because I don't know if this one has much passion or excitement with it. When can people expect to see Penn State basketball in a tournament bracket?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard this year because the players are young. The better players are young. I mean, Freddie DeLeon is a very fine player. He's experienced. But Caden Mingo, what a wonderful player! What a talent! And he's going to have a great career. So I think that's the foundation of a really successful program. I thought that, I think that he does a wonderful job coaching. I really do. I think Mike Rhodes consistently does a high level job of coaching. I feel bad about the 24-25 season because the injuries really ruined what was a tournament worthy team. And obviously the competition it was such a good year in the Big Ten. They've had better, but it was a very strong year. The competition was allowing you no grace for the fact that your best player was gone a lot of the year. And then when he came back was a little bit compromised in terms of his ability to reach his peak performance. You weren't able to get by in that league. You had to be your whole self. And so I feel bad about last season because I think that Mike would have gotten them there. It probably wouldn't have been a high seed. It probably would have been 8, 9 or lower if they'd had the full complement of players all year. But that would have been a nice. This
is a desert. 8, 9 is a waterfall, man. Holy cow!
There you go. But the year that they had, I think they got to 7 with Micah when they had that great group. I think they could have been in the 8, 9, 10 range if they'd been whole. But I think Caden is going to be the foundation of a great team. And like I said, that I every Saturday that I'm there, we have a fair number of Penn State games on the Big Ten air, and so you always see things from Mike that he's doing that are clever, that are functional, that can be repeatable. Last Saturday against Michigan State, the double teams that they used on the Michigan State bigs were so creative. They were constantly mixing up. Okay, now we're going to drop down and dig. Now we're going to go big to big. And the Michigan State bigs never knew where they were coming from. As the game came along, they were able to understand that it was coming from somewhere and that they had to look for it. And then eventually they were able to solve it well enough to get ahead and win. But the fact that they were even in that game with a top 10 type team, a team that's fighting for a 1 seed, was just another piece of evidence, that Mike Rhodes is a really good basketball coach and just needs the time and, I guess in this day, the budget to get the players he needs to win enough at Penn State to get in the tournament.
Thank you.
All right, Mike. My last one for me is a tough one. You are a Pittsburgher, so what is your go-to Permanis order?
Oh, well, this kind of makes me like a sort of, I guess, a Philistine. Is that the right word? A phony, whatever, in terms of my Permanis order, because I don't like coleslaw.
That's okay. You're barking up the right tree here.
So my Permanis order is the Pittsburgher number 2, but just with fries.
That's the correct way. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
I know that a lot of people think that that's, that I'm a dilettante or whatever. But to me, I just like it. I didn't like coleslaw. It's not their coleslaw. I don't like any kind of coleslaw. So that's what I do. And then we usually get their provolone wedges as an appetizer. Okay. Those are really good too.
To look out for those next time.
Wait. So what was the side with the barbecue in Memphis if there was no slaw?
Oh, in Memphis, well, you could get anything. You could get the baked potato, or they had great Texas toast down there, or the baked beans, which were. I
was going to think beans, but okay, but I just wanted.
Yeah, they had some really good, and they even had some decent fries depending on which of the key barbecue places you went to. Our favorite was a place that's not even in existence anymore, as far as I know, called Gridley's. It was close to where we lived, and it was under the radar, so to speak. Corky's was wonderful. The Rendezvous was an experience unlike any other. We took my late brother-in-law there, and they had these waiters who were like they give you a hard time waiter on purpose for fun. And my brother-in-law just had the best time getting very gently beaten around verbally by the waiters. It's been a while since I've been to Rendezvous, so I don't know if they have guys who are still good at that particular technique. But We had wonderful times going there back in the day.
That's awesome.
Thank you for sharing.
Where can people find you and your stuff? I mean, besides BTN, of course.
Yeah, like I said, BTN, a lot of Saturdays, I'm there. And then I will be on periodically on pre and post game shows through January, February, early March at FS1 on their college basketball coverage. We have a wide variety of college basketball now on FS1. In the past, it was mostly Big Ten telecasts, but now we've got some Big Ten, we've got some Big 12. We obviously still have Big East, so a lot of that. We have a show called Big Time Hoops, where we delve into. It's a weekly show on FS1 where I do like an insider segment on that. So you can see me there as well. And then, like I said, every Tuesday, I think it starts the Friday after Christmas. I think it'll be January 2nd, but I'm not sure. But I know that after we get past Christmas, every Tuesday and Friday on the Fox Sports socials, you'll find my bracket for that week, for that particular period of time. People always ask, is that what it would be at the end of the year, or what it would be now? What you think it'll be at the end of the year, or what it'll be now? My job is to do it as of today. So I don't look at the schedule and say, well, I think they'll win 10 more and lose 4 more. No, this is where you'd be as of today, using the criteria that the NCAA selection committee uses to select and seed the teams.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for being with us today. This is great.
Oh, I was delighted to do it. Thank you for having me, and I enjoy very much your work, and I appreciate it very much.
Steve, the one thing I want from a columnist is conviction, and that is what I feel like Mike had a lot of. I thought that was a very insightful conversation with him. I think I learned more about Mike DeCourcy, the columnist, than I did the bracketologist there, which was a good, but I feel like that is kind of what he's known for. And it's funny how like my level of consuming him is almost through the bracketology, through the college basketball lens. But I thought that was a refreshing conversation, and I appreciated him in a good columnist fashion, giving us his opinions while also giving us some insights in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, the differentiation between sports writer and journalist, I thought was important, and it's who he is. And I did not go all fanboy when we got him and talked to him. But for the people we've had, he's right up there with our guys from the South when we talked about it. I mean, Mike DeCourcy talked about the columnists. They were in Pittsburgh when he was there, and there wasn't a direct route to that path probably through what he was doing. I'm a couple years younger, and when it was his byline in the Pittsburgh Press, I knew I was reading a cool story. I knew I was reading something that a sports journalist did, and that was just, he was one of the best people I've ever read and still is. So, for me, it was cool that when we reached out, he said, yeah, gosh, I'd love to do that. And then what did he say at the end? Love what you do. Really? I mean, whether, we'll take it. Let's pretend you actually read something or viewed something, but just a good dude. And yes, the conviction matters, and it shows through. And I think people know that and respect it.
And I think when you do something like bracketology, because he alluded to the fact there is somebody out there grading them now. There's a bracketologist for bracketologists, effectively, and it's become like this like sub industry, cottage industry, if you will. But like when you are on the Big Ten network consistently as he is, and you are on Fox as consistently as he is, that's a major place now for college basketball. It wasn't always, but over the last few years, it's really become a much bigger place. And to have that conviction, that logic, as we talked about, I think was very refreshing, very comforting to hear that see that in a different way, I guess, than what we see in the experience.
Yes, for as much bombast as there is out there and noise for people trying to make their brand, he's made his brand on the logic, the consistency, the quality, and I think people know that.
Yeah. Well, so thanks to Mike for joining us. That was good. He battled some power issues, so I'm happy that he was able to get that figured out as well. So. All right, I gave you homework. It is.
Yep.
It is. Our way. We are not wrapping up the 2025 Penn State football season yet because there is still a football game. We are not doing Penn State Sports Person of the Year because, as we decided last year, we are now going to move that to a school schedule and not a annual schedule.
Okay.
So I wanted some way to wrap up this chaotic year. I think it has been a very important one for Penn State athletics writ large. I think it's been a very stressful one for Penn State athletics writ large. At times, maybe this school year portion of it, more recent school year portion of it than the first half of the year for sure. So I asked you for 5 things that have changed, that have impacted the way we talk, consume Penn State athletics, Penn State writ large. I keep saying writ large tonight. I don't know why writ large. So
I don't know. Mike had better words than you.
Yeah.
That he was pulling out the thesaurus using.
He used some big words.
Yeah. I wrote down 5 things that impacted fans at PS.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. I think that was the more concise way I texted it to you, and I just completely forgot it.
Okay.
So, as always, age before beauty. We have not shared our list with each other, so we'll see how this goes. We have no clue.
Do you want the whole list, or am I just giving you one?
Give me one, and you are not ranking yours, correct? Or did you?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think
I'll
so.
give you one that this was the most noticeable thing for Penn State fans. I don't know if it impacted them, but perhaps it did. It's the stadium signage. It's West Shore Homes Field at Beaver Stadium, because it was just supposed to be a logo on the field, not on all 4 corners, not all the way around. I don't know if that impacted people, but they certainly saw it.
If we were putting a Penn State Sports Person of the Year out there for just 2025, I think it would go to BJ Worzen and the West Shore. It might, instead of being like, a specific person, when they do the timed as like, and you, or like the doctors, it would be West Shore home. That would be our big one. I have one on here that is like tangentially related, but we'll stay there because I think that's a big change. And so mine, I put stadium renovation, so we can get to that because that's also, I think that's a sub or a secondary storyline. But I think of things that happened this year, that was probably until the coaching search, honestly, the most talked about, the most debated, the most frustrated over. I do think that what is frustrating about that whole process is we were sold it as a field naming rights, and you go into the stadium, and before you even get into the stadium, there's the signage. Then you get into it's on the field, it's on the jumbotrons. I think that was we blew past that. It became a stadium night naming deal. One of the things I've tried to look into this football season and just kind of, when James Franklin got fired, one of the things I tried to look into is like, did Penn State leave money on the table? And I think this deal, for what it's actually become, I do believe that Penn State left money on the table of this should have been a stadium naming rights. They could have gotten more money out of it that way. Longer term, bigger pot that they left on the table comparatively to what you look at around the country. So I think that was important. And I do think there was the very public screw up of the Gate A sign. Like I think that was it was an unnecessary self-inflicted wound in this process that they did not need to go through, because they just half-assed it.
Yeah, so from that aspect, and then the mental aspect of it, it's not going to be back for the people that wanted to be Paterno Field and whatever else. So it did impact people just in terms of their perception, their concern, any worry they put on it. So yeah, I guess I'm a little more comfortable with it as an impact now. And there had to be money. There's more to come around the stadium that you could name, and you could, whether it's the gates on the east and west, which again, hello Wawa and Sheets, and there's the gift we're giving to you athletics, and nobody wants it. Yeah, there had to be money left on the table. Just because it was supposed to be one thing, it became something bigger. Unless they did their due diligence and asked, and they couldn't find anybody who was even close, and they figured, okay, this is what we're going to get. We're going to go with it.
Yeah, and I think about that because I don't I don't know who they could have gotten necessarily more from. It's just how Penn State athletics has packaged it. And you mentioned the psychological aspect, and that was this is the first time, really, quote unquote, like at least within the 100 yards of play, that there have been logos on the field at Beaver Stadium, right? Like this was such a big moment that has kind of been a cornerstone of now the Pat Kraft era of we're going to find a sponsor for everything. And now we have two logos on the field, or one logo on the field and one logo just outside of the field. So all that is to say, I think that one comes to mind in terms of probably 1A, 1B of moments. I think if I can take the stab at my first one, I think this one is the other big one that hasn't happened yet, but has also been debated pretty heavily already, at least in several of my group chats, or my one main group chat, and that is the Adidas deal. I think that one, and maybe it's tied together with the West Shore home and the NASCARification of the stadium, and then really the NASCARification of the process. But the severing of ties between Penn State and Nike was a surprise. It was pretty wild when I first heard it, and then when it kind of became public, it was like, holy, like cow, like. I didn't think people reacted the way I was surprised at the way people reacted, both in the sense that there were people that were upset and there were people that were very logical about it, of like, okay, like if Nike's not going to do this thing, now fans like are going to be like, okay, we want people that are going to support us in this process, support Penn State in this process.
Yeah. And following that logic, you are casting your lot with people who are going to support you. If you're not going to be the Nike school, and Ohio State is, and Michigan is, then go find a place, and Oregon is, go find a place that's going to compete against them and be their school. And I think that was maybe not part of it initially from the Penn State side, because it sounded like maybe Nike had made that decision for them in some ways. But then if you're Penn State, that's certainly something you can embrace. Okay, this is who we are going forward.
No, I agree with that. All right, what else is on your list?
I had the emergence and creation of Roar, just because of the mindset change of content and access. I don't know if it impacted many fans, but the mindset and the approach will if they start figuring it out. And we know from Leah as a guest, they're going to try to relaunch sort of and refigure it out. Matt Campbell rollout was probably a sample of that. Like if you're somebody who wants to know first and wants to have something different, Roar had that. Roar Plus had that. So if they can find ways to do that, maybe it'll impact fans and drive them to sign up.
I think what is missing from Roar Plus, that was the thing that I said when we first found out about it, was Penn State can't get in its own way. And it feels like Penn State has gotten in its own way. And I don't know that there has been that exclusivity there. And I don't know that it ever really happened until maybe Terry Smith actually, like, quote unquote, became the interim head coach, because he was the first person to do the interviews with LeVar that we were not getting the same thing from James Franklin at the Monday press conference. There was something unique there. We were hearing him LeVar ask really good questions, and I think LeVar has done a great job with that platform in particular. That just, I think that was something like, okay, this is a foundation Penn State can build on. I do feel like there's still the insideriness. There were some things that were teased but not necessarily like leaked, and then other journalists, actual journalists out in the broader world got it. I think that I think they could have, if they really wanted to, could have been given updates about the coaching search a little bit more clearly during that process, like paying for that type of access. Just give me something, give me a reason to spend with you versus spending with a message board company. If you
I agree. But in your world there, they had to have a plan for what they were going about to be able to share what was happening, right?
Right.
And I don't know that they did. I mean,
right. Well, nobody had a plan.
They got to the end game, all right. No, that's the challenge with Roar. It can be that thing. You just have to be organized and committed enough, and you have to have a content calendar, and you have to be nimble and be able to go off that calendar. You have to think about different sports and who's worth seeing there, and it's probably mostly football and wrestling all the time. And wrestling's tough because they don't often share stuff, although they've done some more stuff there, I guess. But yeah, so I don't know that there was a big impact this year, but that approach will impact fans, or should impact fans if they do it right going forward.
Yes, I agree with that. And I do think, I mean, some of the content that's been on there, the Matt Campbell rollout was great, but the video about the guy that was the lion was probably even better, and is worth the subscription alone. And even some of the conversations between LeVar and Terry Smith were good, because LeVar asked not tougher questions, but he did this with James Franklin as well. He could leverage his position of comfortability with the person to get a better answer out of them, a more unique answer than we were going to get at a press conference from anyone. I think that was big. Okay, we said Adidas. We said the name change of the field. I think I'm gonna. The stadium renovation is kind of weird because it's something that's like present, but also in the aspect of like you went to the game and you saw how the stadium changed. But I don't know that it's like kind of coming. I do think one thing that changed the way Penn Staters like experience Penn State was the legacy fund this year. That was a cost increase, a taxation kind of leaning towards like Roar Plus. And I do think that's just there's no going back now, in the same way like the Nittany Lion Club all those years ago was a no going back. This Pandora is out of the box, and you're going to have to pay that pretty much always moving forward. Just make sure that you bring a water bottle cap with you. I think that to me was one of the bigger changes, not very well talked about, or talked about much at all. And I don't know whose place that is, and maybe that's our place, and that's one of the reasons why we have talked about it. But I think that when we look at the cost of being a Penn State fan, and those little things start to really add up, whether it's a Nittany Lion Club donation, whether it's the legacy fund, whether it's just the general cost of going to a game, and the quality of the product that you are now paying for, like that also has to rise with it. And some of that is on the team, right? Like Penn Staters want to see the Penn State football team or whatever team it is do well. But some of that is just as simple of giving people caps with their water, or making sure that the food options, which are not cheap anymore, are good, or you get some type of value. And you're getting something out of your process, or of spending all of this money on something, and it's not just we're spending money and what's the return on investment? Nothing. Because it needs to be, obviously the outcome of the game is what is most important for most people, but there needs to be some type of quid pro quo there, I think.
Oh, you're buying something, you're supporting something. Yeah. There's got to be some return, and again, you're supporting things in athletics as directly as any other gift, more so in some ways. You're expecting to see a return on the field, or connections with people. So tell people what they're spending for. Show them where the money goes. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's hard. And I know people aren't going to open their books and want to do things, but there's got to be a way to make it at least feel like you're being transparent, even if you're not. So I had a money one. I have about one that just came to mind. It's not the money, but they're like my remaining three are all kind of around the same area, but it kind of builds off the legacy fund. So I'm gonna go to that one. I think the losses and struggles for the football team on the field led to no ticket increase next year. That certainly impacts fans. Tickets are going to cost the same. So, but my question is, we just talked about the legacy fund. Will that go up?
I hadn't thought about that. because that's the thing. Like now there are all of these ways for Penn State, as I think technically speaking from 23 to 24, I think it was, when the ticket prices didn't go up, but the Nittany Lion Club donation went up. And even like they said this year that ticket prices didn't go up, and that was the thing that like kind of was the whole issue or crux of the issue was ticket prices didn't go up, but we have this legacy fund that there's now a 5% service fee on, basically. So yeah, the cost of like you can't opt out of the legacy fund. There was no way to not pay it. So that was a part of the process. So I think that's an interesting one. If you have more on that point, I have one that ties into that, I think, as well.
Yeah, I just, in terms of impacting fans, that was the one that most, on my list, that most specifically, their pocketbooks, whatever else, the rest of them were emotional or are emotional impacts or feeling impacts. But if ticket prices aren't going up next year, that's definitely an impact. Then again, the price still may go up for what you pay out of pocket overall.
So the one that is tangentially related to that I was thinking about and have been kind of thinking about lately, that has happened lately specifically, and this is it, but it is such a big change, is the coaching search, just the whole coaching search process, and now the whole fact that there is a new quote unquote administration in terms of how Penn State might be disseminating information about Penn State football. So I thought about that in a couple different ways. I think that ties into just the fact that we saw a lot more of the word sources, and are seeing a lot more of the word sources around this time of year. I think that's big. James Franklin notoriously had like just an ironclad grip on the marketing and the tweets and all of that. There's been a couple of recruits already, and we have not seen a bat signal tweet. It does not seem that Matt Campbell is going to do that, which I think is fine. So there's like all of that. Then there's also the fact that like the information that's gotten out, both what Pat Kraft said in the leaked audio, and then the fact that like we now know an NIL number of 30 million and things like that. All of this just kind of changes the way people consume things, and I think it's hard to say like just this one aspect of the whole coaching search will change everything, because like anytime there's a coaching change, it does change things, especially for the way college football departments specifically work. But I think about like now, to your point, is if we talked about like expectations are going to be a little bit higher now that we know that Penn State's spending $30 million, and we know that they're quote unquote a top 4 roster or whatever Pat Kraft said in that audio. I think about that, and I think about just like what other things are we going to get to see and hear over the next couple of weeks, months, that are going to be very different. So I think that's a big change, if you will. I didn't know how to put that one other than coaching search.
Yeah, there was a lot that was there with that, and for me, the one that came to my mind, I guess this is the fourth one I've shared around coaching search, was the button. I think the button certainly impacted fans at Penn State this year.
Yeah.
It exposed some cracks in the fan base that were still there. It got people to rally around something. It was a lot bigger than whatever the 2x, and it certainly, as we found out later, the administration said, hey, no, don't do that. And he did. Its impact was certainly much bigger than whatever the 2x2 circle was or 3x3 circle was on his lapel. So I think that impacted Penn State fans, because it made them share something, or it made them defend something, or it made them feel like they were part of something, or feel like, oh, we're going here again. Whatever it was, I don't think you can be a Penn State fan, could have been a Penn State fan this year, and saw that and said, oh, okay, there's that.
You had to have an opinion.
You felt something. I mean, whether you expressed it or not, you're probably like, oh, here we go again. Oh, darn right, something.
Yeah.
So that little button did a lot of work.
That's a good one. I mean, I think the button. That's another inanimate object that we could consider for Penn State Sports Person of the Year. Like I think the button made people deal with things. Like I think that was also part of the process. Like I think the button was better in some ways. Like the Paterno Field aspect of the whole field naming thing came up, and that was heated, but that was different. That only lingered for a day or two, right? And it didn't. It by the end of the start of the season, it mattered in the way we talked about it there, but it didn't matter the same way the button mattered, which was like, okay, how do we wrestle with this, and how does Penn State want to move on, and what is the conversation around Joe Paterno now, 15 years later? Like, how does Penn State handle that? And I think that at least was the it's wild to think that was probably the third most interesting part of the coaching search. Like if you were to rank them, it would probably go, in my mind at least, it would be audio, the Kalani Sitake like near signing, and then the button of like, but that was the first, what felt like a climax event, right? Like it felt like this like peak moment that, yeah, that was, no, that was good. Okay, the last one that I have, I think I'm at 5. I've lost track at this point because I've changed my mind on like several of these. I wrote the word big spending down, and I think that means a couple different things. I think that's the stadium renovation. Penn State's gonna pay $700 million for a stadium renovation. There's that. But then there's also the fact that the new football coach makes $11 million a year. That's bigger spending. I think about Gavin McKenna and potentially like what his NIL deal was and how big that spending was. I think about the fact that Pat Kraft went out and hired up until the time, the defending national champion men's soccer coach. Like that's not cheap. Like all of these, like, I guess it's big spending, big throwing money around that to me has raised expectations at Penn State, changed the way fans look at things, and I think might only going forward make things even more tense when it comes to expectations. So I think that's been a big change for fans in a lot of different sports, not just within football. I mean, I think the Gavin McKenna story of it all is a massive part of the process.
Yeah, and on the one end, I get the investment in, say, football, and that leads to a mean-spiritedness from the fans when it's time for Franklin to go. I mean, everybody rallied around that and was all sure that was it and time to go, and we're really going to be kind of mean about it as we go out the process. The McKenna and the soccer coach, as you mentioned, I still don't know the ROI on those things, because Gavin McKenna is here to, and we've had this discussion, is here to help them get one more win, right? Or two. That's it. All that money and they were already selling out. So I guess
I think we're seeing it though. I think the Gavin McKenna, and I said this
the present
to you,
is the World Juniors and things like that. I mean that.
But I think the Gavin McKenna thing is so much more than that, especially with the outdoor game lingering.
Well,
it's has like I think it's just like I think Pat Kraft cares more about Penn State hockey than he does Penn State basketball, both genders teams. I really.
I think that's, but I think most fans do too.
And I think that's what that signifies and leans into.
The only outlier may be that the media that's covered Penn State men's basketball cares a little more than the fans do.
No, and I think that
may be the only change.
So. I think that's fair, and I think that's the big aspect to the big spending of it all. It's just like, this feels like we are going to put more weight on men's hockey as I don't know what the second or third sport is anymore.
Game, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and obviously the outdoor game is in 2026, but they announced it in 2025. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get to men's soccer next week or the week. I mean, that one I don't know that I mean, not that the national championship it's going to matter, but the games are free. So where do you make up that revenue in terms of relevance, or is it just success, that kind of thing? So
no.
Okay, so my last two are two names, one entry, because I think I'm only at 4.
Okay,
but I'm gonna try to stay sort of true to our media roots in some ways. So 2 names: Gus Johnson and Jerry Neuheisel. I think those two gentlemen and how they were portrayed on broadcast this year impacted Penn State fans during those afternoons at least a little bit.
There is one person in the Juniata section of Altoona, Pennsylvania,
It still hasn't recovered.
that still has not is still bitter about the way Jerry Neuheisel was talked about during the UCLA broadcast. I think that's a good one. I would if you gave me 100 guesses, I don't think I would have had that on my list. But you're right. I think maybe more so with Jerry Neuheisel in some ways, because I think people knew what they were getting from Gus Johnson.
Right, no, they're numb to Gus in some ways.
Yeah, like I think it was kind of surprising to see the CBS, who has been very pro Penn State, or maybe not pro Penn State, but very friendly to Penn State and Penn State fans over the last 2 seasons that they've had the rights deal. Like, that's a good No, I don't think it tarnished the reputation. I don't think it's turned people off, but I do think now, as opposed to looking at Rick Neuheisel and thinking, oh, he's the guy that ate at the tavern or whatever the story is, he's the guy, the father of the guy.
He was a little box up there in the corner,
yeah. So no, I think that's a good one.
Right. That's my last one.
All right, that's good. Trying to think. This was a weird year for Penn State athletics. It was like 2020, the 2024-2025 school year, and the end of that school year was great, and the start of the 2025 school year might have been. I mean, that's the thing. Pat Kraft was very ardent, pounding the table, kind of big stump speech on 4 national titles, and it seemed like he wanted to do it this year. And maybe women's hockey, maybe men's hockey.
Well, women's hockey wasn't on his list, but he's got to hope that they're on his list now.
Yeah, it's and certainly wrestling, and I don't know where your 4th is coming from. Like, I really don't know where the 4th one would come from at this point in the school year.
No, because football and women's volleyball are done. Those were part of the 4.
Yeah.
Women's hockey would be a blessing in terms of still trying to get him to 4. Wrestling's going to do just fine and get him his 1. And men's hockey's going to be entertaining and exciting, and it's just going to be really hard because that sport has gotten so much better while they've gotten better as well.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. All right. Anything else you want to say about 2025 Penn State athletic year?
No, no, that's calendar year, right? No, it was a good year. Well, no, it wasn't a good year.
It was a weird year. It was a weird year, man.
It was a hype-filled year, which I think felt different to me. It was leaning into hype. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to talk, and then you got to walk after it. And the Penn State DNA that I had instilled was just shut up and let your play do the talking. Hand the ball to the guy after you cross the goal line. La 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 la. All those cliches. And it's changed, and it has to change because you're selling in some ways, lots of ways. So they have to sell. There has to be a little bit more brash that comes with it, and the AD is a little more brash that comes with it. So I think that's the change. The biggest change for me is just the nature of the beast has changed a little bit, both internally and externally.
No, I think that's fair. Thought of another big spending, 2 big spendings. Jim Knowles, spending all that money on Jim Knowles, and then potentially whatever is left in the buyout. And then I guess the third big spending would be Terry Smith, right? Like making him the highest non-coordinator coach in college football.
And I'm curious because I forget. His position is cornerbacks, defensive.
Nobody knows. No one knows on the new.
But before that,
yes, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Because if you're going to make an argument about positions that didn't play well, I mean,
to be fair, one of the biggest plays of the season is because the cornerback fell down and let a Notre Dame receiver score a touchdown. That's going to be forever burned in my brain. I think the quarterback play is the 2 interceptions are going to be the 2 big moments of how people remember. If you're trying to think of individual plays, I think that's on there. Yeah.
I think as a man, as a leader of the program, there's no doubt. But if you're going through coaches getting in trouble for their unit or being judged by their unit, it's an interesting aspect of the discussion.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, this week's old guy, young guy. I wanted to make it Christmas related, so we might talk before Christmas. We might not. I don't know if we're going to do an episode next week. That's really what we're getting at here. I want to know several things. Number one, does Steve Samsel send a Christmas list to people of things he wants?
No. I don't think I ever did.
Like recent, like since you were a kid?
Past decade. Oh no, I mean we might have made a list when we were kids, but not so much. Susan and I'll talk a little bit, and that's it. And there's been and this year there is no shopping this year, I've been told. So well, there's shopping in Altoona only.
Okay. Well.
So
yeah, great place.
At the dollar store.
Shop. Yeah.
Because we're going to do that because I'm not quite sure why.
Okay. Give you plenty of recommendations of dollar stores.
No, it's the dollar store. We're going to the dollar store.
It's a $1.25 store now, by the way.
Okay, then we're going to the $1.25 store with $20 in our pockets each, and that's all we can spend.
That's beautiful.
To be creative.
That's beautiful.
I don't know what Pinterest board that was on. If you know, that's where it came from.
Okay. So there's that question.
So do you make a list?
Like kind of. I give my mom a list, and I give Anna ideas, but I didn't submit a formal list to Anna, at least this year.
Okay.
Next,
is there a process for submitting a formal list?
No, it's just send a text message of things you want. Make sure that the link's on there. And
I didn't know if it had to be approved by some place.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Is Steve Samsel surprised by what the kids open up on Christmas? As in...
Oh, that's a fair question. Less so the past couple years, but there were probably a couple years, late teen years, where it was like, oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Okay.
Good job.
Okay.
So, but I generally had a sense.
Okay.
It wasn't totally out of left field or right field, whichever field it comes out of. I just
Danny in left field,
every little detail.
Sam.
I don't know which one's which, but right. Wherever the Angels were out there in the outfield, that's where the gifts came from.
Okay. All right. I was just curious on that one. And then, are you like? Do you, when you buy gifts, besides when you're going to the dollar store, when you have bought gifts for Susan in the past, do you want a list, or are you going off the book?
Oh, I'm almost always off the book. That's my freelance money is my cheating money. Like, so the Altoona Mirror money was like my cheating money. So if we would have a budget, I'd be like, damn right, I didn't overspend that budget because I didn't come in, didn't see it.
Okay.
Cashed those checks, went to the jewelry store, went to whatever, and yeah. So typically no, and it would ebb and flow from super creative some years and in a scavenger hunt to maybe not as creative, but you weren't expecting to get this kind of stuff. No. What about you? Do you get a list? Do you need a list?
There's a list that I receive, and then there are usually some independent contributions just from various things happening.
I'll write stuff down in the middle of the year. Like if something happens, I'll write something in my book.
Okay.
Oh, we looked at this. This would be interesting for a couple months from now or whatever else. Yeah, kind of not lose the idea.
That's good. Do you wrap your gifts, or you pass that task?
I'm a wrapper, but I'm not a bow person. I'm a wrapper and a Sharpie.
Okay. Yeah, I can't wrap.
There's little to from cards. It's a wrap and a Sharpie.
Yeah, I can't do the wrapping. I really struggle with. It's
even square boxes.
It's probably the worst 2 hours of my year. Wrapping
even square boxes.
Yeah, it's just not good with it. Not patient with it.
Yeah, I don't have patience, but usually all I get is the square boxes. That's how I know what the girls have. She'll be like, "Here, you can wrap this." I'm like, "Oh, good, square box. I can wrap that, or I can put that outfit in a square box."
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. All right, that's about it. Happy early birthday, by the way. I think your birthday is.
Oh, thank you.
Is it Friday? Your Friday birthday this year?
Yep.
Nice.
Yep, big celebration.
Nice. So happy early birthday. We'll probably talk to the listening audience next week because we will have some sort of stuff.
We got 27 Clemson opt-outs, 4 so far at Penn State. We got to do like a brief bowl preview.
Yeah, we will.
Somewhere.
We will.
Okay.
We can, whatever about that. So we will have the usual depth charts and pregame and postgame coverage there. That's coming up quick. That's really next weekend.
And you're not going?
Not going.
Okay.
Probably head somewhere a little warmer.
Good for you.
Because I don't really feel like it would be one thing if I hadn't been to the Pinstripe Bowl before.
Right.
But
no, that's fair.
So I'm interested to see what the turnout is. Like I think it helps
So
that it's
am I.
close, but I'm also interested to see just like, are people just collectively done with this Penn State football
And tickets
season?
aren't cheap. I mean, dropping $100 and some dollars to Yankee Stadium's probably not the most football friendly viewing experience. So, yeah.
No, that's for sure. We have a website. It's called stuffsummersays.com. On that website, there's a section called With
Steve.
I have an email. Mine's Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve's is
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
okay. 5 stars, thumbs up. Appreciate all of that. And yeah. Lastly, you can find me on the internet at Stuff Summer Says. You can find Steve.
Yeah, it's Steve Samsel.
See ya. Bye.